For my final synthesis vlog of LCTE 2017, I'd like to go over what we've done throughout our time here. We have completed 2-hour-long vlogs, 1 reflective vlog, and 3 inquiry posts, along with various things. We led some questions at the EU, and we created a lesson to use in the School for Immigrant Students. So those were all really helpful. My first video log was a reflection on my time passing through the red light district in Amsterdam. This video log focused on how women seem to be over-sexualized in the Netherlands and the impact of legalization of prostitution in the country. The red light district tour was very impactful for me because it made me realize that the culture within the United States is really different than the culture in other parts of the world, and this tour was my first true experience here showing me that. For my first hour-alone challenge, I decided to head to a local cafe in Maastricht and just kind of sit and talk to some people there about the culture in the Netherlands. Now, I went into this hour alone with very low expectations. I didn't even assume that anybody would be willing to talk to me, but my assumptions were quickly proven wrong as I ended up turning a 1-hour conversation into a 3-hour conversation with 3 different girls who are now friends with me on Facebook. These girls talked to me about a bunch of things, ranging from the differences in college tuition to how the tracking system works, the differences between the competitiveness of German students in comparison to Dutch students. We even touched on the differences in maternity leave and paternity leave, gun control, gun violence, all that kind of stuff. Now, it was really interesting to me to hear their perspectives on these topics, along with what they assumed it was like in the United States, and we kind of went back and forth talking about that for a long time. This hour alone was the most beneficial out of the 2 that I did because I felt like I truly became a part of the culture in Maastricht. I formed friendships and experiences that I would not have if I were left to my own devices in Maastricht. I probably would have just walked alone by myself, and that's totally normal too. I tend to be a pretty introverted and quiet person, so I went into this trip kind of wanting to grow out of my shell. The hour-alone challenges helped me to do just that. I was incredibly nervous going into both of them, but they both worked out in the end. Now, for my second challenge, I decided to work on my Dutch language skills and attempt to utilize them in an appropriate setting, this being a market in the square of Maastricht. As I stated in my original video log, this challenge did not work out as well as my first hour alone. I went into it with different expectations, thinking that I would be able to memorize a few basic phrases and that would be useful enough. But I didn't consider their responses, and also how my nervous mind would likely forget everything that I had memorized. So I ended up blanking on a lot of what I had practiced. But honestly, my expectations, despite being very high, I was still pretty proud of myself. In all honesty, I was disappointed at first because I didn't live up to my expectations, but I realized that it's an important part of my growth during my time here. I really learned that things don't always go as planned, which is a hard thing for me because I'm a really big planner. This was one of the global competencies I actually wanted to work on personally as I went along on the trip, adapting to situations of change. And I think that I was really able to do just that. I was put in situations throughout this entire trip that I was not normally used to and thrown out of my comfort zone multiple times. Not just during my hour alones, but in general, it was a very challenging time. I always tried to head into things, despite my sleep deprivation or my stress levels, with a positive attitude. Now this, along with my other hour alone, also helped me tackle the global competency of undertaking tasks that are unfamiliar. Even getting the courage to start up a conversation with somebody random was a huge step for me. At MSU, it's been hard for me to find a niche of people because I am so quiet, but now I know that if I put myself out there, I can hold a good conversation with someone, even if they're not completely fluent in English. My hour-alone challenges were different, but they both immersed me in the culture of Maastricht. I walked away feeling like I was a part of Maastricht. Staying there for 11 days made me feel like it was my new home. But these hour-alone challenges were also different in that they made me interact in different ways. I was more comfortable in the first challenge because I was able to speak English. Obviously, that is my spoken language. So I thought that I should try and push myself a little more in the second challenge and attempt to utilize Dutch. Now, like I said, that didn't work out very well, but I'm still proud of myself for pushing myself. A lot of this trip has been about making myself do things that I wouldn't normally do, and I really think that overall that helped me grow as a person. Now for next year's LCTE students who are probably sitting at home watching these video logs just like I did before applying, I would recommend doing something that pushes yourself out of your comfort zone for your hour-long challenges, because that is truly the only place where you will be able to grow. Now it could be something as small as going to a cafe and talking to somebody like I did, and that's a good place to start off, just to kind of get your toes in the water, get a little more comfortable with kind of pushing yourself a little more. After that, you might become a little more courageous and maybe attempt to join a tour in Maastricht that's even being spoken in Dutch. There are some really cool caves and tunnels that run throughout the city. You could also head to a bookstore and ask a sales worker for help finding a book that might interest you, or you could head to a yoga class that was taught in Dutch. All of these will really show you that you can do more than you think you can do. Overall, my 2-hour-long challenges both fit within the goals that I had for this trip. I wanted to challenge myself in ways that I had not been able to before. I wanted to leave my comfort zone and to become more confident in my abilities to be on my own. I left this trip with the confidence of navigating cities on my own, speaking to those who don't speak English well, and knowing that I can do anything if I just set my mind to it. There were days where my health took a toll on me, but I powered through so I could get every experience possible. Seeing the various schools and acknowledging how I can apply what I witnessed into my own classroom will truly help me down the road. My inquiry research was helpful to me because it helped me understand the cultures around me, which is also something that I hoped to be able to do as I spent my time here in Europe. I learned about how the Dutch typically do not like to act out. They live by the phrase doe normaal, which means act normal in English. Now, I witnessed this throughout my time here. It was really interesting to see. They don't like to brag about their money. They don't like to talk about their grades. They just prefer to be themselves, stay quiet, keep to themselves. And that's normal for them. I also learned more about the Dutch school systems and the tracking that's involved in it. And on top of that, I learned the benefits of knowing more than one language, which has shown me that I should really get my life together and learn another. I would not have known any of this if I weren't here just to see just how different lives are as opposed to the United States. The culture here is kind of more my style. The speedy, fast-paced, overzealous lifestyle of Americans can be pretty overwhelming at times. As a result of these experiences and inquiries, I will continue to push myself in ways that I would not have. I want to attempt to make more connections with those around me and learn that not everything has to be done on my own. I can ask for help if I need it. I can rely on others. For so long, that has not been what has been going through my head, but this has shown me that it's normal. I also have learned that I should encourage my students, my future children, to learn a second language and potentially learn one myself, as the benefits are immense. Now, in general, I have come away from this experience knowing more about how I want to run my classroom, how I want to change as I get older, and how I can go about doing that. I'm going to continue to challenge myself and grow in any way that I can. Thank you for listening.